look on a web or something like that?
Yeah, I just couldn't send it. I don't know. It may just be this computer, but I got it sent. I was responding to her forage plan. Uh,
No, I have no problem blaming Microsoft for it. Believe me,
you have no problem what?
I'm blaming Microsoft for your problems.
No.
Yeah. Keith is not going to be here today.
Yeah, I figured he's probably with that food bank again.
Yep, and he told me that today should be the last Thursday he misses, so
Okay,
that should be settling out. So
that's all
Jasmine
right.
and yep, Jasmine and Aaron, are y'all there?
I'm here. I think Aaron's coming, but I'm not sure.
Okay. And good
All
morning.
right. Yeah. Good
Good morning.
morning. Um, I did some more research on those low line cattle Keith was talking about.
Uh-huh.
Um, I stand corrected. They're not. They don't carry that dwarf gene. They come from Australia. Back in the 1920s, Australia, or some of those research stations over there, was measuring feed efficiencies, rates of gain, things like that. So they did. So they imported the best genetics at the time from the United States and from Canada, and they had a group of high, you know, high rates of gain, average daily gain. Then they had a group of low average daily gain cattle. Then they had a control group. And from the high average gaining, the high growth, they called the high line cattle, and the lower gaining rate of gain cattle were called the low line cattle. And they continued to import genetics from the late 20s all the way up through the 60s, um, importing from the United States and Canada, Europe. And then in the 60s, they made those herds a closed herd. And because they had it big enough there, then they could not get inbreeding going on. And they had herds, they had those experiments replicated throughout the continent of Australia, their different research stations. And what they found out over the years, they finally did away with the research in the 90s, I think. They terminated the project and sold those herds off. And the low line cattle became, they got smaller and more feed efficient. Um, and better, had better conversion rates of the amount of grain per gain. And they were smaller framed. And I think they weigh somewhere around 1,000 pounds, 900 to 1,100 pounds for the cows, and maybe up to 12 to 1,500 pounds for the bulls. So, frame score wise, they're going to be down in the fours, maybe the threes, when we take a look at comparing them with frame scores for normal cattle. And they tend to marble pretty good, which they should. They're Angus, and they've used the best genetics, even if they used other breeds. But they use, they've got good carcass qualities, and those low line Angus tend to fit this grass-fed beef niche really well. And so now what they're promoting is to breed low line Angus bulls to conventional commercial cattle for calving ease. And those steers should finish out about 1,200 pounds, which is what the target weight was on the steers when we were in college, for that boxed beef deal. now they're finishing these steers off about 1,600 pounds. And so they're having some issues with quality because the equipment was made for the 1,200 pound steers, and the trucks are too short. They're bruising their backs, because the cattle hauling trucks weren't made for these real big those 1,500 pound steers. So, but anyway, so that's how they're promoting those, is to cross them up with commercial cattle, and they call that F1 generation, I think, moderators, and that they work real well on, or they're promoting them for ranches and regular conventional farms.
Huh. Well, that's just downright educational. I mean, it all makes sense, but I just never had thought about it.
Yeah, I thought they just had that dwarf gene. They, I just thought it was a novelty breed, when we had the dwarfism in the cattle, and they were kind of promoting that, and those little short belt buckled cattle. That article also talked about low-line Angus or low-line Herefords. There's not any. It's just not that I could find. They didn't do that with Herefords. They just did it with Angus. So these miniature Herefords are really miniature cattle, and from what I understand, they tend to have that. They have that dwarf gene.
Okay.
Now, I could stand corrected on that.
Uh-huh.
That's just because that piqued my interest. And Evan's wanting to start a slaughterhouse, and he's wanting to hit a niche market with grass-fed beef. So I passed that article on to Evan, and we've been talking about it. We talked about it yet the last couple of days about, and I think he's going to do he's going to swap his project. He's going to do cattle. He's going to do beef cattle for this animal production project, but he's going to go to that low-line Angus now, and to where he could just sell a complete beef, how they said that in that article, it yields enough meat to feed a family of 4 for a year. Because his issue in the past was getting the family to buy beef. It was just too much beef for them. They couldn't handle it all. So they would,
we see a lot of that around here. You get 3 or 4 families to go in together to buy a cow, and I would imagine that the little ones would do better in the terrain, where y'all are up more in the mountains, because they're going to be more efficient on grazing and all, so that might actually work out.
Yeah, I don't know why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a win-win for that situation. I mean, it's
especially if he can get his own slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And then market that beef up north, grass-fed beef, and that's the reason he took that CDL course, so he could get a refrigerated truck and truck it up north. He's trying to do everything he can to get set up when they get the funding to build a building.
He's got the big plans going there. I'm scared now.
Yeah, he's got some pretty big plans. So I hope he's successful. I may be working for him here in a few years if all this pans out.
We all may be.
What's that?
I said we all may be working for him.
We may be. I mean, in all honesty, we have been discussing potential jobs with that, and then also being a grower for his cows. So, we've got some plans in the works on that deal. But anyway, until that happens, he had to take a job with the gas wells. So he's back on the gas well line. But anyway, but I thought that was interesting what I found. That's how come I was sharing that with you. I was hoping Keith would be here. He might have found some interest in that.
Yeah, hopefully he'll listen to the recording. I'll tell him to do that.
Yeah. I think if you had those low line Angus that if you just took them to the market to sell them, or sold them conventionally, either at the livestock market or through state graded sales, I almost think they're going to grade shorts or mediums. They'll be on the low end of a medium frame steer or maybe even a short. And so I think you would take a beating. I feel in order to do that, you're either going to have have those moderators, use a low line bull on your cows to produce those moderators, or you have niche markets. But anyway, all right, we'll get back to HR. Has Aaron showed up yet, Jasmine?
No, he hasn't.
Okay. Just speak up when he does, so we know he's there. So this next chapter we're getting ready to go into is chapter 9. And chapter 9 talks about supervisory power. So let's begin with what is a supervisor? What's in your mind, Jasmine? What do you think a supervisor is?
It's kind of like a manager. They're the head over a certain part of the business.
Okay. Supervisors, it's a specific level it's a specific level in the management hierarchy. It's usually between the manager and the workers. But, we want to boil it down a little bit more simpler. It's any person that has responsibility for directing and facilitating the performance of one or more people. So if you have people that you're responsible for, of getting them to perform and giving them direction, then that would make you a supervisor. The success of the supervisors, it depends on their ability to influence the workers and to facilitate the performance of others. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
So if they can influence other people and help their performance, they're going to be successful. So a good side book to read that I think everybody ought to read it is Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It talks a lot about people management. And you can go to a workshop, like a weekend workshop that these Carnegie people or followers of Dale Carnegie put on. They've trained them and they use that book as their basis. But, and you learn people management skills and public speaking skills. But, that's a good book, everybody should read. Have you read that, Tom?
Yeah, I did. I actually have a copy in my office if somebody needs to borrow it.
Yeah, I've got a copy at the house that I got. It's pretty interesting. Some of it's boring, but it's a pretty good book. Now, when we think about supervisors, going back to that definition of what a supervisor is, of any person who has a responsibility for directing and facilitating the performance of one or more people. Where do supervisors get their power or their authority? I'm sorry, Jasmine, you're in the hot seat by yourself again today.
They could get it from like the owner of the business.
Yeah. Okay. That's one place they get it, just from the organization. The owner, the owner or the manager puts them in that position. They also, they get it through basically through organizational power. The design of the job, the employee selection, the pay of the supervisors is usually a little bit more. Some places provide training and development of their skills and leadership abilities. They may send them to one of those Dale Carnegie conferences or something. They get it through worker involvement, and also if they have to discipline workers. So basically they get their power through, one end of it's through the organization. The other place they get their power. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We know how life is sometimes. We're talking about supervisors and where they get their power. And basically we said that a supervisor is someone that has responsibility for directing and facilitating the performance of one or more people. And their success depends on the ability to influence subordinates and facilitating the performance of others. And we just finished talking about power. Where do they get their power? And they get it from a couple sources. One is the organization, how the job's designed, the selection of employees, pay, training and development, worker involvement, and perhaps discipline. In reality, a supervisor may not have all the power they let on to have. They may have to check with upper management first with some decisions. But they also bring in power with their personality, with their own personal influence. And that's what the person brings to the job that's not given by the organization. So, like their knowledge and their skills and their abilities, that's something that person brings to their job, what they know, what they're able to do, and the skills, their education, their interpersonal skills. How well do they get along with other people? And are they friendly or not? Do they have charisma? And also their personal leadership skills. Those are personal traits that supervisors can gain power that's not given by the organization. And probably, you guys know people who are just like, I don't know, how would you say it? very charismatic. Everybody just kind of hangs out, waits for them to decide what to do, or they're kind of the leader of their group, although nobody has designated them the leader of their group. It's just they just have that charisma and personality, and everybody just kind of follows them. You know people like that?
Yes.
And it may be y'all. You may be the leaders of your groups. I don't know. But that's the personal influence, the power of their own personal influence they have. So that's where the supervisors get the power, from their personal influence and from what the job gives them. Now, as I said, the reality may not be, they may not have all the power. They may not have all the authority to do stuff. They may have to check with upper level first. They may have to check with upper level management on who they hire, or if they have to discipline, or if they have to make a purchasing decision. They have people they have to answer to. All that depends on how the job is set up and so on and so forth. Every place is different. Now, when somebody has power over other people, can that be abused?
Can you repeat the question?
When somebody has power, can influence other people, their production and their output.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it can be abused. Or they may not use that power. They may not, it can be, they may not use it, or they may overuse it, right? So it's supervisors, it's a balancing act, because as a man, if you're the owner or the farmer, you have supervisors, you don't want them to have one hand tied behind their back and try to perform their jobs. But at the same time, you don't want to give them free rein, because that can lead to abuse. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
I'll give you an example. When I was Stewart Landing Cattle Company, when I was working there, before I started working there, one of the previous, this was years ago, the guy's dead and gone now. One of the past former managers had a farm of his own right beside of the company farm. He owned a farm right beside some of the company's land. And, he was a good manager. He knew cattle. He knew forage production. And he did a good job. But, and the owner, or the general manager of Stewart Landing Cattle, had a lot of faith in him and pretty much just gave him free rein to do whatever. Okay? You just get the job done. I don't care how you do it. Well, this guy used the men there at Stewart's to go work his own personal farm. If he needed cattle work, he just grabbed the men and take them down to his farm and work his cattle, let the company pay the men. He did things like that. And so when all this came about, what was going on, they got him, they asked him to leave, or told him to leave, brought in another manager. And then that guy, Tom, you probably know this guy, was Linkus. Do you remember him? He was when we were at college. He was out there at Hickory Hill. He was the manager for them.
That name's ringing a bell. It really is, but I can't put a face to him.
Yeah, from Marshall Hall. He was managing Hickory Hill, Geltby there. Linkus came in for a few years, and then he took a job up there at Blacksburg managing a farm up there. And then when he left, then Robert Wampler came, and Robert ended up being the manager when I was there. And anyway, Zan, the general manager of the operation, he pretty much tied the hands of his managers after that. You know, Robert was a good guy. Richard Linkus was a good guy. I think it's his name, Richard. But Linkus, he was, from what I understand, he was a good guy. But I do know, and I wasn't there when Linkus was, so I don't really know what happened, or what I was going on. But you know, I just know he had another job offer, pretty nice offer, and went up there to Blacksburg. But Robert, Zan put some pretty tight reins on him. Robert, new cattle, new forage production. He was a dairy farmer, also raised beef. They also had sheep. He knew his stuff. But Zan kept his hands tied behind his back because he was afraid of of where he'd been taken advantage of before. And so, although Robert was the manager, he had to go to Zan with just about everything because he had his hands tied behind his back a little bit too much. So that's a good example, or an example of, somebody giving free rein and the guy taking advantage of it, and then the succeeding guys had their hands tied behind their back and they just weren't able to do the job they were supposed to do because of those restrictions. And then, so abuse could be either abusing the employees or abusing the company. It could go either way. So responsibility and power, it's a balancing act. So you got to be careful. And, reality, guys, it's just one of those learning curves. You just got to play with it and make some mistakes and learn from them and learn how to judge character, because some people will be loyal to you all the way and won't abuse the power. Other people will. And it's hard to guess what people are going to do. It's hard to predict. And sometimes when people get power, they change. Y'all ever notice that in people? You give them a little bit of authority and all of a sudden they get a big head?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I don't understand that. From my experience of being in a supervisory position, and I haven't had didn't have a whole lot of people that I had to direct. It was just a few people at a time. I found out that you can get more out of the people that you're directing if you can convince them to work with you instead of working for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, if I come in there, say I hired you and Jasmine, Aaron, to come work on my farm, and I just, you came in every day and I told you what you had to get done, and come back and check on you throughout a little bit. You know, no doubt y'all would do your jobs. But if I came in and I said, okay, guys, you know, say we met at the shop every morning or in the barn every morning, I said, okay, guys, here's what we need to get done today. Is that going to make a difference in your attitude? Whether I say, Aaron, here's what you need to do today, or if I look at it from, hey, here's what we need to get done today. You know, we need to get these cows fed. We need to tear out some of this fence and get it replaced. You know, we have a game plan for the day. It kind of gives you the sense that we're working together to get this done, doesn't it? Instead of me coming in and start barking orders at what you guys did.
Yes.
At least that's the way I looked at it and I approached it.
I think that's key to being a good manager, though. Using we instead of telling them to do it, make it seem like that we're all together in it.
Right. And I think another key to that, Aaron, is that you don't ask your employees to do something that you wouldn't do. You know, I mean, there's jobs on the farm that nobody wants to do, but we still have to do it. You know, whether you have somebody working for you or not, it's got to get done, right? Just like when I was working, when I was at Tech, after my freshman year of college, I took a job up in Pulaski. I was working for a guy named Tim Sutphin. Tom, you know him? You know Kathy, right?
Yeah, I remember her, but not him.
All right. Tim is Kathy's husband, and he now has the BCI bull test station for Southwest Virginia. He feeds those bulls and puts them on test. He's a really good manager, really good farmer, and a really good guy. You know, I liked him. He was a great boss. And one day, you know, I was working for him, and at the time, you know, he had cattle and he had sheep, and I can't remember how many. I guess it's probably about 100, 150 head of cows, 300 or 400 ewes, and you know, of course, lambing season was over with, and the ewes were out on pasture, and their lambs, and it was raining one day, and he said, Dwayne, he said, go hook up the manure spreader, back it into the lambing barn, and clean out the lambing barn. We got to get it cleaned out. It's a good day to go clean it out. So I grabbed the radio, plugged it into the lambing barn, found me a station. I guess that country station out of Pulaski. And started forking manure, you know, into the manure spreader, and then, you know, run out there and empty out the spreader and come back it in there and do it again. And after a couple hours, Tim comes out to the barn, grabs a pitchfork, and is sitting there, and we're both forking manure and cleaning up that muck. And I said, Tim, I thought you had paperwork to get done. Are you done with it? And he goes, no, I'm not done with it. He said, Dwayne, this is the job that I hate the most, is cleaning out the lambing barn. And I was sitting there doing my paperwork, and I started thinking, I gave you the crappiest job there is to do in my eyes. And I just didn't think it was fair, so I came out here to help you. Now, if that didn't go a long way with me and teach me some lessons on being a supervisor, I don't know what did, you know? Because it would have been real easy for him just to do what he was doing, you know, since he hated to do that job anyway. But, you know, he's not above not doing something himself. He wasn't going to ask you to do something he wouldn't do himself. And that goes a long ways too, guys. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so anyway, um, it's you got to balance it. You got to get your workers to work with you and not for you. I think it really influences how much, the productivity of them. Now, supervisors, they're kind of in a catch-22 position. Uh, they have several roles. Wouldn't you agree? Other than just telling the workers what to do or directing workers on what to do, convincing them to work with them. What
Yes.
roles do supervisors have?
They have to make sure that everything gets completed.
Yeah,
And it's
they have
done.
to make sure everything is completed. Or if it's in a factory, excuse me, they got production goals they have to meet, right? Or quotas. So they have a loyalty to management, right? Of getting that job done. But at the same time, they can't be unfair to the workers, can they? So they have to be fair to the workers, but they have to be loyal to management. Now, do you think are there times when management puts unrealistic expectations or quotas on the workers?
Yes.
Yeah, they sure do. And it happens more times than not. So, is that going to put that supervisor in a bind? Is he going to be more loyal to his management or more loyal to the workers or more fair to, if he knows it can't be done or without making some type of compromises with safety or something, right? It puts that supervisor in a pickle. Because, he has to be loyal to the management. He's got to be fair to the workers. He's got those production he's got to take care of, make sure the job gets done. But he's also got to be concerned about the safety, doesn't he? Safety of the workers or the health of the workers. If they're out topping tobacco, and it's 80 degrees and it's humid, and then you're in that tobacco patch and you're going through there and you're topping and spraying tobacco, there's no wind. It's a whole lot hotter in there because, it's pretty hot. Those guys, you can get overheated pretty quick. Or if you're out in the hayfield bucking square bales and storm's rolling in and you're trying to pushing those workers to get more hay, get that hay picked up, you got to be careful for your workers, for their health and their safety. But yet you got to try to get that production done.
There's been days when I was in that tobacco field, and I did not think I was going to make it till 4 o'clock.
Oh, I know. I feel your pain, Aaron. I've been there myself.
I mean, it's been so bad that we had to stop about 1 o'clock. We couldn't go no past 1 o'clock. It was so hot. So we had to start early in the morning.
Yeah, it's hotter. It's even hotter where you guys are than where we're at. You know, my boss wanted us to get this tobacco patch topped and sprayed, and there were three of us to get it done. And uh, it was, I shouldn't call it a patch, it was more of a field. It was about a 10-acre field. And, you know, topping tobacco is not that bad. Just go through there and break the tops off of it. Spray it, you know, spraying it, you're carrying that backpack sprayer through there and you're spraying it. And the tobacco is pretty tall. There's no movement, no wind. It's hot. And there were three of us. And them old boys told me, and I was a supervisor, okay? These old guys were just, you know, they were workers. They said, Dwayne, you better slow down. You're going to get in trouble. And I was pushing to try to get it done. I wasn't pushing them. I just, you know, they knew what they could do, and they were staying ahead of me anyway, so it didn't really matter. But they'd go top out a row or a couple rows. They'd go in between and just, you know, top out 2 rows as they went down there and come back, sit in the shade for a while. And I'd go through there and I'd go through there and spray it. Go fill up my sprayer and go hit it again. They were taking breaks and I wasn't. And they told me, they said, you better go take a break. And I said, no, we got to get this done, boys. Y'all take your breaks. I'll catch up with you. And we were beside a river. This tobacco patch was right beside the river. About 3 o'clock, you know, we stopped for lunch and hit it again. And about 3 o'clock or 3:30 or so, they said, Dwayne, you're going to stop. They said, you know, we can finish topping this. We'll help you spray it. You need to go get in the river. I said, no, I'll be all right. And they said, no, you're not going to be all right. You need to go get in the river, take your clothes off, and go jump in the river. You're going about to have heat stroke. And so I did. And they wouldn't let me come back to work. They made me sit there in the shade. And I got home. I was so weak and so thirsty. I about overdid it that day. But it can get bad. But, you know, and I would have felt awful if that would have happened to one of them. Luck, you know, it happened to me. They're the ones watching out for me. But that's one of those deals where, you know, I knew the dangers and I knew they were old. I wasn't going to push them. I was just going to figure it out to take up their slack. I was in my mid-20s. I was tough, or so I thought. Not as tough as I thought I was. That heat about got me. But anyway, we got it done. Robert, boy, he got on to me for that one. He said, you should have known better. We could have took another day. It wouldn't have mattered. But anyway, but you got to be careful in that heat. It'll get you. The other thing a supervisor does is they act as an interpreter. Between, you know, communication is very important, and we all know that, whether it's personal relationships, working relationships, or at work. And typically, you know, management will communicate to the supervisors on what needs to be done, and the supervisors communicate to the workers. And ideally, when there's issues, the workers communicate to the supervisor, who then communicates those concerns and issues back up to management. And so, you know, they act a lot, you know, they're interpreters between management and the workers as well, and they take a lot of heat. I used to hear the workers there at Stewart's complained about Robert. Oh, Robert's making us do this, this, and this. But, you know, I knew that was coming from the general manager. Um, and, you know, I knew that was coming from the general manager and not from Robert. He was just doing his job. But Robert was another one that'd be out there with us to do what needed to get done. He wasn't one to tell you go do something and not do it himself. He was a really good manager, really good people person as well. But anyway, you know, they've got supervisors have a lot of roles. They got a lot more on them than what some people think. So what do we do, you know, as business owners or farmers? How do we prevent our supervisors from abusing their power? What are the ways they can abuse their power? Let's talk about that. How can supervisors abuse their power?
They could try to make the employees do all the work and they just sit around not doing anything.
Okay. They could be little task drivers, right? Get to work, get to work. You almost picture them with a, you know, cattle prod, giving you a little shock to get going a little bit quicker, huh? So they can overwork their employees.
Yeah. Also,
They can
some of them think.
yeah,
Some of them think that, you know, they are the boss,
that's
like
right.
the top boss.
They do. And they can get abusive. They can have that abusive behavior or attitude type deal, right? Kind of getting in your face and chewing you out over everything. Uh, can they steal from you as workers?
Yeah, I believe so. I
Yeah,
believe they
they can steal your time. You know, if you're supposed to have, you know, whatever agreed upon time for lunch or for breaks, they can take that from you. You know, hey, let's just work right on, let's just forget taking a break here and keep on going. Or working right through lunch. Now, you know, in reality, you know, on a farm or ranch, you know, there's several times I've worked right through lunch, you know, because, you know, we were working cattle, we're almost done. You know, you're not going to quit. You're not going to quit and take an hour lunch and then come back and work the rest of those cattle. You know, if you only have a few more head left, you may work another hour and then take lunch at a later time. You know what I'm saying? You know, if you had a whole bunch left to go, yeah, we'd stop and take lunch and then get back to work at it. But if we only had, you know, we could finish up in another hour, we kept right on going and got that done. Then we stopped, take lunch and or whatever. But yeah, they can steal from the workers. What about sexual harassment?
Yes.
Do they do that?
Yes.
You bet they can. Or racial harassment or favoritism. All those things are abuse of power. So as managers or business owners, or how would we prevent that happening under our watch with their supervisors? Because we may not ever know about it until it's too late. How would we prevent that? What are some ways we could prevent that abuse of power? How about training? Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes people don't know they're doing wrong unless they're told, right? Or you know, they're instructed that, hey, this isn't, you know, this is the way you need to do this, or this is what we should be doing. So proper training of our supervisors. Uh, Another way we could do that is having a grievance procedure or policy. The workers can file grievances with something they don't, they feel grieved about or upset about. If they feel their supervisor's being unfair or something or abusive, they have a way to let management know, and not by going through the supervisor. You can also have a disciplinary process. If there's consequences, if you abuse your power, you will be disciplined and possibly be terminated from your job. Another thing that we could do is to rotate. We can rotate supervisors back to worker status. We can put Jasmine in as a supervisor for a few months, and then take her out of that position and put Aaron in there for a few months, take him out, put Keith in there for a few months, and have that rotation going through between supervisors and back to workers. So everybody knows what it feels like to be a supervisor, and everybody knows remembers what it's like to be a worker, and that hopefully that would help prevent that abuse from going on. You can also set up a ethics committee. In reality, guys, if it's a small business, you're not going to have a business ethics committee. I would think that's going to be more for a big corporation type deal. A small operation's not going to have that. But that is an option. And the other thing you want to do is to avoid the appearance of wrongdoing. Appearances count for a lot. So you want to avoid that appearance of doing wrong. So, as a worker, what do you guys respect in supervisors?
I respect, I guess respect and fair treatment.
Okay, fair treatment
And respect from them.
and respect from them.
'Cause,
Okay.
I mean, I see it. I think if you respect them, they should respect you back.
I agree. Be treated with respect and be treated fairly. Anything else you would like to, that, your ideal supervisor, what else would it entail? You have anything to add to that, Jasmine?
Basically the same thing, mainly respect.
Okay.
A good personality too.
Yeah.
It goes
That
back to what
that
we were talking about a couple weeks ago.
right. That helps. So, as workers, we value respect from our supervisors. We value good manners, right? If they're going to get on to us for something, that needs to be done in private. If they're going to praise us, do that in public. Nobody likes to be yelled at, chewed out in public. Uh, you want to be treated with respect, uh, good communication skills. Uh, I don't know about you guys. Aaron, it's probably happened to you a time or two since you've worked on farms. Sometimes your boss thinks you can read sign language from a tractor.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, they're in that cab
Yeah.
tractor and they're sitting there, their arms waving every which way, and you're looking at them like, what are you doing? Swatting flies? Because they're trying to give you directions on what to do. I don't know if that's ever happened to you before or not, but it's happened to me.
I can
Oh yeah,
tell
it's
you
happened.
once. Oh, I was gonna say I can tell you one sign that I got loud and clear. It involves one finger.
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't had any bosses say that to me. Uh, but I have, we were raking hay one time, and one of the guys that my boss was, I asked, I'd finished raking the hay. He was there in the baler baling it up. And I looked at him kind of like, where do you want me to go now? Which field do you want me to go rake? Because we had about 3 or 4 fields down. And he just started waving his hands everywhere. I didn't know so I just stopped. I just walked over there and said, I can't understand your sign language. Do you want me to go rake this field or that field? Where do you want to go to next? uh, but it was, he was laughing about it, but he's a good guy. Uh, but anyway, that happens. Communication. So, guys, it's my thing, you know, here in this class, treating on how to treat people, you know, get your workers to work with you and not for you. And then always remember the golden rule. You know, treat other people the way you want to be treated. And it goes a long ways, you know, uh, for those supervisors. If you're in a supervisory position, treat other people the way you want to be treated. Remember what it was like when you're at the bottom rung, when you're at the bottom of the totem pole, you know, remember how you felt, what qualities you liked in your supervisors, or when you had supervisors that you didn't really care for, or the qualities you didn't like in those supervisors. You know, treat people the way you want to be treated. Um, and lead by example. Um, just like Tim Sutphin, you know, hated to clean out the lambing barn, but he was out there with me shoveling it, forking it up. You know, perfect example of leading by example. Um, and don't do anything unethical. You know, keep everything black and white. Don't go in that gray area. Don't compromise your values or the values of the company by going into that gray area, or, even appearing to, appearances count for a lot. Stay on that straight and narrow. Don't do anything unethical or do anything unethical to your workers. Um, And you're going to have to remember that everybody has different values and beliefs, uh, especially if you've got people working from other countries. So, you need to be aware of those and be sensitive to that. You know, um, this one guy I worked with, he, most people go to churches on Sundays. He was 7-day Adventist and he went on Saturdays. And, yeah, go on to church on Saturday. It's not a problem. You know, that was his Sabbath day. But he was always willing to work on Sunday so somebody else could go to church. He'd be there on Sundays, and so somebody be able to go home and spend time go to church with their family. But we allowed him to do that on Saturdays, and he always worked on Sundays. And it was cool. Make treat people the way you want to be treated. Um, and be aware, be sensitive, show sensitivity to workers that may have different beliefs than what you have, or values. In that case, it worked out really well for us. So as individual measures we can take regarding supervisory power or being in a supervisory position, listen. Always listen to what's going on. And if you have any doubts, clarify those. Make sure you understand what's being said to you. And if you have to make a quick decision, if you have time to think about that and put some consideration in that, don't be afraid to ask for that time. Don't feel rushed that you have to, don't feel pressure that you have to make a very important decision right this very minute. Unless it's life or death, take some time or ask for some time to really consider that decision you're about to make. Do what you can, read books or take classes or something to try to learn coping skills, and to learn to be tactful and diplomatic. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not very tactful or diplomatic. I've got to work on those myself. And, my wife has been helping me with that quite a bit since I've been married. But, those are some skills that I have to work on, is to be a bit more tactful. And sometimes, we have an issue that we have to solve. Sometimes we can come up with an alternative issue to find that answer. 9 ways to skin a cat. If we can't do it number 1 way, we may have to do it number 5 way. So, look for alternative solutions. And sometimes we just have to be firm and stand our ground. You have to do that at times as well as a supervisor. So, any questions or comments?
No.
Aaron, you have anything to add?
He went to the restroom.
Oh, okay. Now, we still got a little bit of time left. Tom, you have anything to add about supervisors? Anything you or not. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Oh, but you just did put me on the spot. Thank you.
I did. Never mind then. I didn't know if you wanted to share an experience of a good or bad supervisor or words of wisdom that.
Well, I really, they both Aaron and Jasmine were hitting on that. You want the supervisor to respect the workers as much as you want the workers to respect the supervisor, and that's so true. I talk about it in a lot of my classes that the manager needs to realize you're using them to help you make money just as much as the workers are using you to help them make money. So it's a partnership. And so it starts with respect, and it seemed like it was either you or Aaron started listing off 2 or 3 other traits that you were looking at. And what went through my mind is it's almost like a list that you would make for dating. Except maybe for the way your supervisor looks or the manager looks, but the things you're looking for is, respecting somebody, caring, not just using you, paying attention to what's going on with you. But if,
that's a good analogy.
Because the way I look at it is you don't want just a little short-term job. You want a career, and you're going to be spending 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day with this person in this company, and you need to make sure it's the right fit. You can see your coworkers as much as you're going to see your spouse during the week, and likewise for them. So that's why you really need to put the effort into for the employer choosing the right worker, and for the worker choosing the right job. So always ask questions. Always ask questions in an interview.
That's right. Jasmine, you and Aaron were talking a lot about that respect. You think back to, one of our very first lectures when we were talking about what employees expect from management, we get to that. We want, employees expect to have their feelings and opinions valued and to have, be shown respect.
Yeah, I used to build houses with a couple of brothers, and since William was the one that kind of fronted the money to get the business started, Stephen, he kind of thought that they were partners. But in William's eyes, it's William's company and Stephen is his employee. And at least once a week, we would lose an hour while the two of them are arguing about what's the best way to do something. William wants it done one way, Stephen wants it done the other way, and they're sitting there arguing over it for an hour, and really would have been made 5 minutes difference one way or the other depending on which method we used. But we lose an entire hour because Stephen didn't feel like he was getting heard, didn't feel like he was getting respected, but he didn't realize the financial sacrifice that William made, so it was a communication issue on both sides, and they settled it by arguing. And then the other thing...
Go ahead.
And the other thing, as far as respecting your employees, one of the people I used to build houses with, I've told this story in a couple of my classes. It's like hotter than fire, 100 some odd degrees, and when you're working on a roof, putting on shingles, if it's hot, the tar in the shingle will start to melt, and then as you're walking on the shingle, your feet will start rubbing the grit off of the shingle, which tears up the shingles, and that's a problem because the house won't be as waterproof. So on these real hot days, does JJ tell us, y'all work until about 11 o'clock in the morning, get down and go do something else, and then we'll come back about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and hit it again? No. What he would do is he would stand on the ground with a garden hose and spray the roof. Not us, but the roof. Spray the shingles so our feet wouldn't tear up the shingles so we could keep working for the rest of the day. Yes. I mean,
I don't know how y'all didn't get heat stroke up there.
Yeah, that's the thing. We had to come, if they didn't have a convenient chimney nearby, we'd have to come down the ladder every 15 minutes to get a drink of water out of the cooler. But of course, if there's a chimney on the roof, then our cooler's sitting on top of the chimney, so we don't have to come down the ladder. But, and I'm all the time griping about, he could have, putting trusses on the roof, he could have rented a crane for, a couple $100 instead of having us out there manhandling them one at a time, and we're beat down by the end of the day, and we're worthless the next day too. also he could keep from writing a couple $100 check, but he probably spent that much paying us for not working very hard the next day.
Yeah, I tell you what. Now I know I've carried my share of shingles up ladders all day long, and you talking about being weak-kneed at the end of the day now, and the next day your legs. Where I didn't do it on a consistent basis. Now my legs were pretty weak the next day too. It's a tough job.
Yes, it is. I could tell you some stories, and that would either make you laugh or cry or both, but I'm holding off on some of them.
Yeah, it's one guy I worked for. It was a father and son outfit, and and it was a very similar situation what Tom was talking about. Sometimes they'd sit there and argue about the best way to do something. Because they both, I don't know how they considered themselves, as management or whatever. And I never did know who was my boss. Bill would tell me tell me go do something. Jim would tell me go do something. You know, they must have had some pretty good communication because it never was conflicting. You know, you just did what you were told. But sometimes if we were on a big project, they'd argue about, like what Tom was saying. They'd argue about what was the best way to go about it. And I don't know if it would have made any difference. The job still would have got done. But anyway, it was interesting. What you'd think you'd see working for family like that.
Yeah, both of the construction crews I worked with, both of them were all family, except for me. So I was never going to get promoted. That was pretty obvious. So that's a dead-end job too.
Yeah, that was the way it was at Stewart's. I knew, I came in as a manager of the Rich Mountain Farm, and that was where I would have been. Either, there was nowhere else to go unless Robert left. I ended up leaving there, but, it was a good place to work. It was a good job, or it's a decent job. And it was a good learning experience coming out of college, learning how to manage people, manage a farm. I stayed there for a few years, and I was there more for the experience than the money situation, to be honest with you, because I knew I wasn't going to move up the organizational ladder for several years, and I also knew I wanted to make more money, but let me put some practical experience with my education and then move on, was kind of the way I was looking at that. Whether that was right or not, I don't know, but it was the way I looked at it, and it worked out good for me. I don't have anything, it was a good job. We had a lot of fun.
Oh yes, a lot of fun. Horse playing with nail guns and that kind of stuff. Woo. But yeah, I mean, I learned a whole lot doing the construction work. We had a lot of fun doing it, and it's given me a whole lot of stories that I tell in a couple of my business classes. When we get to job safety, I talk about this one guy named Daniel for like 30 minutes. I'm telling stories about him. And you talking about the guy that played Hoss in Bonanza?
Yeah.
That's what Daniel looks like. I mean, if you picture Hoss in your mind, you got Daniel pictured, and he acts the same. And anyway, but I got me some stories.
I bet. But it's it was a good time. We had a couple brothers that would work for us, and boy, they fought like cats and dogs. And you just hope that you could, if they were both working there on your deal, you hope that they would not get into it, because if they did, they'd just all quit and just start walking home, and you were left with nobody. Uh, and you never know what would set them off. They'd be sitting there joking amongst themselves, and next thing you knew, they were in a fist fight, and then they were all walking home different directions. It was, they were crazy. We laugh about it. Robert come by and says, "Where are the Reynolds boys?" It's like, they got in a fight and went home. He just shake his head. He goes, the first time it happened, it kind of scared me. And then Robert said, "Oh, that's just a common occurrence. Don't worry about it." We try not to put them together working if we can avoid it. But anyway, so, think about these traits as supervisors, because one day you're going to be in a supervisory position. Take what you've learned through your experiences and, and how you want to be treated and how what you respect, and apply that. Show your workers respect. Get them working with you and not against you. And always remember that golden rule. Treat them the way you want to be treated. So, anyway, guys, we're out of time. You have any questions or anything you want to add? Is Aaron back yet?
Yes, he's back.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. You have anything you want to add, Aaron?
No, sir. I think I'm good.
Experiences or anything? Okay.
Oh,
What was that? Were you going to say something?
oh, no, sir. I'm good.
Oh, okay.
I think we're good.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So remember your assignment due this weekend. Aaron, how you coming along in your animal production stuff?
Pretty good. I'm going to take the test today, I believe.
Okay. Did you listen to the lectures yesterday on how to figure up your cost for feeding and vaccines?
No, sir. I haven't had a chance to watch. I haven't had a chance to watch yesterday's yet.
Okay. And then the assignment, when you come back from spring break, I want you to have your nutrition, forage management, and health plan put together. So, just want to let you know that. Okay. Well, guys, y'all have a good day, good rest of the day. And I'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye, y'all. Drive safe. Yeah.
Have you heard from Greg?
No, I have not. So
I have not either. I've called him. I saw where you've emailed him.
Yep.
I'll try calling him again today.
Yeah.
But I can't get hold of him.
Yeah. For the simulation thing at this point, he's not the only one that didn't do a decision, and I'm like, I had to go ahead and I assumed he didn't want to order anything. That's what I had to do.
That's about all you can do.
Yep.
When you were at Tech, Tom, did you take Taylor's class where you had to manage it? We had
Yes,
to do
I did.
make decisions for a grocery store.
Yes, I did, and I kicked myself for not having kept the notes for that class, because
I know, I do too.
I could have really used that, but yeah.
That was a good class, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, I didn't, just because I was young and stupid at the time. I didn't follow it anywhere near as well as I could. I didn't get anywhere near as much out of that as I should have. just that's what I kicked myself for that class, but I enjoyed it enough. It's really, to a certain extent, Dr. Taylor's fault that I am where I am, because my last semester tech, I only needed 5 credit hours. And I told myself I wasn't going to pay the rent on the building, on the apartment, and all that stuff just to take 5 hours. So after having taken his class, I went to him to talk to him about, another class he was teaching, just to take it as an extra class as an elective. And he's the one that talked me into getting the minor in Ag Econ. And
so is your degree in animal science?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I ended up getting the minor in Ag Econ, and I ended up making the dean's list that semester after taking 4 econ and 2 ag education classes in one semester. And then that kind of told me that I should not have been majoring in animal science, because that ain't the way my brain works. And so that ended up a couple of years later leading to me going to graduate school in economics, and well, here I am. So, but that was like Dr. Taylor's last year there. I can't remember where he went, but seemed like when I went to talk to him about that class, he was kind of in the process of cleaning out his office. I don't know what was going on there, but
it was my second year at Tech, and I had Leon Geyer's ag law class. And
oh yeah.
And I had him for ag econ. The first quarter of ag econ.
Oh, okay.
And because he taught that my freshman year, or I took it winter quarter. I didn't take it in the fall quarter. I took it winter quarter. And he told me, he said, Dwayne, he said, you're too smart to be a steer jockey. You need to transfer over to ag econ. And I said, nah. I kind of have, my goal is to go into the vet school. So I'm going to stick with animal science, but I sure like ag econ. And he said, well, let me tell you what classes you need to take. And so he sat there and he made a list of classes that I needed to take for ag econ. And I took them. And I didn't get my minor in ag econ. I was like 2 or 3 classes away from that. But I took all those classes, including Anya McGurk's microeconomics.
Yeah, I had her.
I liked her, didn't you?
Yeah, I really did too.
That was a good class.
Yeah, but I had Geyer's law and his policy class in the same semester at the same time, as well as doing the ag pricing, or the pricing and market analysis, futures.
Yeah, Kenyon's.
Yeah, no, Dr. Kenyon wasn't doing it. I can't remember who was.
Dr. Kenyon taught that when I took it.
Or maybe
the futures.
Maybe it was Dr. Kenyon. It's been so long ago, I can't. But
and then we played the futures market.
Yeah.
He gave us an account with 10,000. We had to make so many trades that semester.
Yes, I did well on that. I was surprised.
Yeah, I done pretty good in that class. It's like I did better in those ag econ classes than I did in some of my animal science stuff.
Yeah, that was me. I found out that I can't memorize.
And sometimes I regret not taking Geyer's advice and getting my degree at swapping over to ag econ. But I did for a while, but I don't now. I liked animal science, and I loved my research that I was doing out in Nebraska, with the reproduction, nutrition interaction, and being out in the sand hills and going out Colorado and cowboying for a while. I don't know how much I could handle just being in an office, in a banking type. I don't know. I think a loan officer for ag would be fun, going out there and working with that. But
yeah, if they let you go out to the farms, yeah.
Yeah, if they let me go out to farms and to stuff like that, check cattle and check the farms and stuff. I always wanted to get on with farm credit, but I hadn't been too successful with that. Those jobs don't open up very often, and when they do, the competition is stiff. So, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I can't sit in an office all day either. But
no, I got to be out. Extension, I loved extension. That was fun. You know, if I didn't feel like sitting in an office that day, I was going out and looking at farms all day and looking at cows. You know, so it was a fun job.